Hello, welcome back to the Red Devils Den podcast. So we're obviously coming off a Europa League quarter-final, which was a good result. We're talking about that first. Obviously on Sunday we've got a match against Tottenham Hotspur. That's going to be a big one. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer versus Jose Mourinho. Probably going to be the big headline on that. There's also potential talks of a swap between Rice and Lingard as well from West Ham. Probably going to be talking about that in between the two matches. But first of all, we're going to talk about Granada. So United Resurgent, you just give us your sort of thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I thought it was a relatively dull performance, but I'm not surprised given the fixture congestion, the number of injuries teams have been picking up. Rashford was playing semi-fit, so I didn't think the performance was too surprising. The biggest thing for me ultimately was getting the result. The second goal was vital because when we were up 1-0 and I saw that Harry Maguire, Luke Shaw, Scott McTominay were going to be suspended for the second leg, I was worried. I wasn't sure that we would get through. Now I'm pretty confident with that second goal, and it was a penalty. I know there's been some debate around this, but he put his hand in Bruno Fernandes's face. I realized that it was an off-the-ball incident, but at the same time, you can't do that. It's against the rules. It's a foul. It's a penalty. And Bruno could have done better, but Lady Luck was on our side, and the keeper didn't do his best, and the ball went into the net, and now I'm pretty confident we'll get through. And at the same time, Bruno scored. Slavia Praha, I think it is, got their equalizer against Arsenal. So it was a good day all in all for us yesterday, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I won't disagree with that. Josh, anything to add?
I think the way the game went is basically it mirrors how we're trying to manage Rashford at the moment. Is get on the pitch, do the job, and get off as soon as you can. I know the goal came late, but it wasn't what you call a smash and grab, but it was a professional performance in Europe to put yourself in cruise control for the second leg, which we need to be due to obviously the suspensions. Overall, am I happy with the performance? No, but it was a good sorry. It was a good yeah, cheers, Dan. It was a good a great result, a fantastic result. 2-0 away from home in Spain. The lads looked like they were enjoying the day and the nice weather. They were a very aggressive team, come out with hopefully no injuries. The suspensions aren't very good, but a fantastic result.
I forgot to touch on that, just building on that point about the physicality of Granada. I looked at the foul count and it wasn't too dissimilar. But then you look at the fact that they weren't getting cards for anything. They had a tackle that injured their own player and didn't get a yellow card off of it. Meanwhile, the referee, if we so much as breathed on them, was, okay, here's the yellow card for you. So it was ridiculous, the refereeing performance, but thankfully we were able to overcome it.
They had 8 players who could have been suspended for the second leg and not one of them got booked. We had, I think, 4 or 5 who could have been suspended. I think Lindelof and maybe one more, and 3 of them got booked, and 3 very crucial players. So it is frustrating.
It honestly felt like one of those matches where the referee has decided beforehand that this match is such a mismatch in terms of financial resources that I'm going to be as aggressive as possible with United and let anything go with the other team just to try to balance it out a bit. And obviously that's not right.
Yeah, until he gave the penalty, I was thinking, well, this referee is really against United. But then when he gave it, I was sort of thinking, maybe he's just, he isn't so biased after all. But then again, you think 3 players out now for the second leg, that could cost us. But yeah, United Apollo. Any thoughts on the game?
I'm fine with it, if I'm honest, in the sense I think a lot of people on Twitter, for example, are overreacting at the performance in the circumstances and in the situation we're in with how hectic the scheduling is and all of that. You've just got to get through each game, get the job done, and we managed to do that. So the next season, when we have the fixtures are less condensed, we have more time to train and work on things, players have more time to recover, then you can start expecting higher performances. But at this stage of the season, in this hectic schedule, you just got to get through the games.
Yeah, definitely. So many, obviously, as you say, with so many minutes most clubs have a lot of games to play, but Manchester United especially, with the Europa League, and obviously we've gone so far in the other cups as well. Got to be one of the most, played the most games in Europe, or one of the most at least. But yeah, who hasn't gone yet? Okay, Vin, what were your thoughts on the match?
Yeah, I wasn't too concerned with the overall style of the performance because, again, it's the fag end of the season, 10 games, 10, 12 games to play, squeaky bum time. That's what this is, right? Just get through the game, get the result, get 3 points, get the win, finish the tie. That's what it is, and that's exactly what we did. I mean, the penalty at the end sort of made us feel a bit better because up until that point, I thought that 1-0 was like a nervy scoreline to take into a second leg, given the fact that we had three suspensions. In a way, that's good because Maguire gets a rest. He never really rests. So, in a way, it's a forced rest for him. Shaw as well. McTominay. I mean, again, the refereeing was absolutely pathetic. I don't know what the hell the referee was doing. Yeah, 14 fouls for Granada to 12, only two yellow cards for them. So I don't know that how that works out. But otherwise, I think my personal opinion was that Rashford shouldn't have started. But then after he scored the goal, I was like, okay, good, you started, but now take him off because Granada were being really really physical, and I just had a feeling that if he stayed on for longer than he did, he was he would have been injured for like a good period of time. They would have made sure that he would have been injured. So yeah, doesn't matter the performance. I mean, everyone on Twitter scribbling about, oh, there's no flair, there's no style. Forget it. At the end, as long as you're getting the win, you're getting the results. I can understand if this was the start of the season. I can understand the complaints, but it's at the end of the season. So just get through with it. We'll look at the end. We need to win the competition, and in whichever way we can, so be it.
So just touching on that really quickly, where you said that if Rashford had stayed on for a little bit longer, he could have gotten injured. And while we're having a go at Twitter, one of the narratives that really was getting to me yesterday was this idea that, oh, we're not the club medic, we're not the physio, we don't know if Rashford is semi-fit or not, and people were having a go at people before the match for saying that Rashford should have been rested. And then Ollie came out after the match and said, yeah, he's not fully fit. So, I mean, Ollie's confirmed it. And it's a fair question to ask whether running Rashford into the ground and potentially having him miss the semifinals or finals if he picks up a bigger injury is worthwhile at this stage of the season, especially with Anthony Martial already out for probably the season. And so it's just one of those things where I wish Ollie would start playing half-fit players, but equally, he's the manager. I trust him to kind of figure out the best way to navigate these circumstances. But the fan base needs to calm down in terms of this idea that they know all about the medical history of the players for positive or negative. I mean, let's just focus on reality here.
Yeah, for sure. Wasn't it Marcus Rashford's sort of like managerial team with like his agency? They put on Twitter the last time he was actually fully 100% without any knocks was like 2 years ago, which shows he's been out of it for a while in terms of injuries
Scored
and stuff.
20 goals in consecutive seasons while with playing with those knocks, which shows what a good player he is. And yet you still have some fans saying Trashford or he's the new Danny Welbeck. I mean, they can just fuck off with that narrative, right?
Yeah. And also something that got to me as well was when people were saying, "Oh, sub Amad Diallo or not start Amad Diallo." They were so rough with Rashford and stuff like that. We've been playing in the Premier League for years, and imagine what it's going to be like with Amad Diallo. I just don't think he's got the physicality yet, especially to deal with a team like Granada who just kick your shins all day. But yeah, moving on for that. In terms of like standout performers, man of the match, I want to get Dan's thoughts on that. So who sort of caught your eye?
I actually think Lindelof deserves a lot of praise for his performance last night. I think he was really, really good in in everything that you expect a central defender to do. Obviously, his assist was brilliant for Rashford. We know that he can do that. He did it against Sheffield United in a very similar way to Rashford as well. I also was saying to Josh before the pod that I thought he did really well aerially last night as well. I mean, I know obviously Saldano is not the biggest centre forward in the world, but I think he actually won most of his duels, and that's without sort of looking at the stats. Just from watching the game, I think he done really well with his aerial duels, and he didn't really do a lot wrong for me last night. And I think him and Maguire are just getting sort of better every week now. I mean, I know they didn't create a lot, but for me, he was my man of the match. I think he did really well. And sort of going off that, obviously we know Maguire is suspended for the next leg, but because they offered nothing aerially that I was concerned about last night. So I mean, obviously that is obviously aerial ability is not his only quality, but that sort of does put me a bit more at ease for the second leg, given how much they created from crosses and things like that. But yeah, I think Lindelof had a brilliant game, so he was my man of the match.
Yeah, fair enough. I think Lindelof's going to be most people's man of the match for that. Is there anyone who wouldn't pick Lindelof?
No.
No. Fair enough. Okay, so is there anyone else sort of just trying to think? Is there anyone else sort of had really a standout performance? I don't think there was.
No, it was very much so a team effort. So it was difficult really to pick out a standout performer other than Victor Lindelof. I mean, Ollie rarely singles out players after wins. In terms of he brings it up himself, but Lindelof he singled him out last night, and he was very very high praising of him. So that'll do his confidence good, and he's going to need it for the second leg with the long balls. So hopefully it gives him a boost.
One thing that I did notice from last night was the sort of general story of the game was a little bit different to how our usual performances are. You know, usually we're not a good first half team whatsoever at all, and we sort of grow into the game. We're better in the second half. But last night, I mean, obviously we know that they started fast, but after that, it was actually us that sort of started growing into the game throughout the first half. And I thought midway and towards the end of the first half, we were passing really nicely. We were really playing some nice things. We were sort of camped in their final third, and we had a few good like sort of pop shots. We had some really nice passing moves, and it was then in the second half that we were awful. Whereas we usually are better in the second half than we are in the first. But I felt we were better in the first than we were in the second last night.
Yeah, agreed. So United resurgent. What do you think about sort of the stand-up performers? Do you think do you think Edison Cavani can sort of get back into form now? Back with his injuries behind him, do you think he can sort of get back into his scoring ways?
Yeah. So for me, Edinson Cavani is somebody who I back to stay at the club another year. I've seen a lot of fans turn on him these last couple of weeks, and I agree. His performances haven't been great lately. He's been probably as bad as Anthony Martial has been this season in his last couple of performances. But having said that, they've come after long injury layoffs, and he's not particularly match fit. And we saw at the start of the season when he came in wasn't match fit that he wasn't great, and then took him a month or so. He built his way up, and then we had great performances like against Everton. So I think it's one of those things where, and also we've seen from Ollie, he constantly references how Mason Greenwood is learning off of Edinson Cavani. I think Greenwood's talked about it himself as well. So for me, keeping Greenwood is keeping Cavani is something that I'm very interested in. I think he can recover some of his form as he develops more match fitness. But even if he doesn't, to some extent, just having him around the place as a mentor and as an additional body in case of injury to Greenwood or Martial would be worth it. Because the way I look at it is, so Fabrizio Romano tweeted this, I guess it would be afternoon in the UK, that Boca Juniors have offered Cavani a 2-year contract, or are going to offer him one, and United want to keep him for 1 more year, and that's kind of the discussion on the table. So for me, I wouldn't look into a 2-year contract. If Cavani comes back and says, I'll stay if you give me 2 years, that would be too long at his age. And he's not shown the form lately that he would deserve it. And it would be a mistake like we did with Matic when we gave him a 3-year deal. But if we can keep him on a 1-year deal, even as a mentor and as a body, he's worth it. So I'm definitely interested in keeping him, and I think he can recover his form. And he's also a great mentor around the club, so worth keeping.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. obviously he has had trouble with injuries, which I said when we first signed him. Wasn't
He's 34
entirely
years
healthy.
old. You expect him to
Yeah.
be injured half the time when you sign him at that age on a free transfer. I mean, it's not one of those things where we paid 30 million for Eric Bailly and he's played 100 games in 5 years. It's not that kind of situation. We knew coming in, this is a 34-year-old striker who hadn't played since March when we signed him in October. I think deadline day was October 5th, right? So I think it literally been 6 months since he played a game of football, and he is old. So it's not horribly surprising that he's unfit half the time. And that's part of the bargain you make. If you want to have a striker who's fit all the time and who can consistently deliver that form, you don't sign a 34-year-old. You go ahead and sign, you pay 40, 45 million, sign Andre Silva, sign Dusan Vlahovic, go get somebody like that. But in the absence of that, he's a valuable body. And when he is available, he's valuable on the pitch. When he isn't available, he's valuable off the pitch.
So when we were linked to, Luka Jovic in the summer from Real Madrid, would you have signed him instead of Cavani because he's a lot younger without injuries as well? Would anyone have signed him?
I would. I was
Frank
thinking of him.
Yeah.
So like last January when we were looking to sign a backup striker, right? Because Rashford and Martial went through injuries, and we signed Igalo. I had pointed out Luka Jovic, and because simple reason that, I mean, he had a good record at Eintracht Frankfurt before he joined Madrid, and he looked pretty impressive as well. And he was being underplayed. Zidane wasn't treating him at all. He wasn't giving him any game time. And so that was one of the big reasons why he's formed it. But he's still a good striker, young striker, I think 23, 22 years old. So I felt that he could have been a good addition for us in the short term, for like 6 months to a year maybe, but definitely not long term, just to fill the gap while Rashford and Martial recovered from their injuries. But yeah, so he was someone whom I was advocating for, but Igalo did a fine job for us as well.
This is a narrative that comes up a lot, the idea that players who fail at Real Madrid aren't worth looking into. And I just want to point out a couple of prominent examples. Wesley Sneijder failed at Real Madrid. He was world-class at Inter Milan and won the treble. Rafael van der Vaart failed at Real Madrid. He ended up being one of the great players for the Harry Redknapp Tottenham team. And then in more recent times, Zidane has a history of pushing out younger, more talented players in favor of those he trusts. You look at Sergio Reguilon now at Tottenham. He's a fantastic left back. You look at Martin Odegaard on loan at Arsenal. He's doing fantastically over there. So the idea that a player wasn't successful at Real Madrid or couldn't get in the team there is not necessarily an indictment of the player. He could have a perfectly fine career in the Premier League. It's an indictment of both the pressure of playing with that shirt and also the fact that Zinedine Zidane is not necessarily the most trusting when it comes to young, talented players. He'd rather play a 37-year-old Marcelo into the ground than play Sergio Reguilon, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, okay. We wanted Sergio Reguilon as well. I mean, ahead of Alex Telles, but then they wanted the buyback clause. So I think Ollie knew that, all along that Reguilon was a player that could be a top player. But yeah, we're not about Real Madrid or anything like that. So, we talked a bit about Cavani, stuff like that. Why not move on to Declan Rice and Jesse Lingard? So United Apollo, I know you like Declan Rice. So what do you think about prospect of a swap with Jesse Lingard?
I think it makes sense from just about every way you look at it. We desperately need a defensive midfielder to replace Matic. He's Premier League proven. He's young, so we'd have him for the long term. In the pandemic market, we don't have unlimited funds like we would normally do, and we could take a chunk of the fee off with Lingard going the other way. Whereas if you were to sign a different defensive midfielder, you probably have to pay a lot more. So it makes sense just about every way you look at it.
Yeah, I agree. I think he would fit right in as a match successor because he's got the defensive ability. He's not really like a box-to-box player like a Fred or Scott McTominay. And he can get forward, which he said himself in interviews, I remember. But he's more of a Matic player who just sits there and not so much takes play like a Pogba would, but just sort of wins the ball back. progresses the ball quite well, keeps it simple when he has to. But he's really solid, really good mentality, works really hard. He's got a passion and desire, as you might say. But Josh, what do you think? Would you take Rice?
I mean, his character fits into exactly what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wants to build here. He takes responsibility for his own performances. He wants to win. He loves the togetherness of a group. He wants to do well for his country and he wants to do well for his club. And he wants to, he's very intelligent in terms of football. When you watch his interviews, he knows his history and he knows what he needs to improve on, what his team needs to improve on. He is captain of West Ham, who are a very big club at such a young age, whilst the actual club captain is on the bench. So for him to have the personality to do that says a lot about him. He's very popular. As soon as if he joins Manchester United, obviously fans will start saying how overrated he is and they never used to like him. But he is exactly what we need to sign because we need to have a midfield upgrade and he has to be a part of it. I think whoever signs him could have a good chance of winning the Premier League in the future. I'm hoping City don't. I'm hoping Chelsea don't. And Chelsea won't because they didn't want Lampard to do it. And for Lampard to be Lampard's a great Premier League midfielder. He's a fantastic, one of the best to ever play in the Premier League. For him to be so obsessed, and one of the reasons he lost his job is because he was pushing for Declan Rice over him, says probably a lot about his quality. And he has a lot more qualities than we probably think. He's better at going forward than we probably think. He can strike a ball just like McTominay can, and he's a great passer. So yeah, I'm all for Rice. Whether Lingard would go to West Ham without Rice there, I'm not sure, unless they guaranteed who they could sign. For some reason, I've wrote here Rice for Lingard. What about Lingard for Sancho? I don't know if that's something we could do, but Lingard's going to be a valuable asset for us this summer in terms of if we want to get a big player. So hopefully it all works out. But I would absolutely love Declan Rice at Manchester United.
Yeah, I think most of us would. So Vin, obviously, give us your opinion on Rice, but also would you want to keep Lingard potentially because he's done so well at West Ham? Do you think he could still work out?
No, I don't think so. I think Lingard's doing really well at West Ham right now. One of the reasons I think is because their style of play suits Lingard in the sense like he gets a lot of space around and he gets the time and the space to drive the ball forward, do all his tricks and do all his dribbles. And I think that style of play suits him because if he comes back to United, he's best as an attacking midfielder, and we've already got Bruno and Van der Beek over there. So he's going to be third choice, and it's going to be that cycle all over again where he's not getting game time, he's going to get frustrated, and then he wants to seek a move away again. So I think the best thing would be that for him would be to move to West Ham permanently, because quite clearly I think he's going to be the starting because I think West Ham also play a 4-2-3-1. I think, and over there, I think he's going to be the number one attacking midfielder. I think he's better than Fornals, who used to play there before Lingard joined. So I think it suits him perfectly. He's having a blast over there. And I think, like Josh said, one of the reasons why that is maybe because of his camaraderie with Declan Rice. And that is like a minor issue that whether Lingard would move without Rice or with Rice coming the other way. I'm not sure. That could be a potential issue that we'll have to see if that works out or not. But yeah, I mean, for his own sake, I don't think he should come back, really. I think he fits West Ham. West Ham fit him. I think it's a perfect combination.
Yeah, I think it's sort of up to Jesse Lingard's thoughts on it as well. I mean, I think there's a good chance he wants to stay at West Ham because he's gone a couple of years now at United where he's just not quite probably gotten the chance he wants. But of course, there was a point where he was starting every game, he just wasn't performing. But we knew he was going through some mental battles and stuff with his mother and stuff like that. So you should sort of let him off. But he just hasn't quite had the chance, especially since he signed Van der Beek, because he's sort of the second choice number 10 now, and that's where Jesse Lingard plays.
Yeah, like I mean, he's one of my like favorite blokes at United. Like I've always like enjoyed whenever he performs, and he's always like this fun-loving, bubbly, happy to go guy. And I really felt bad for him like in the past year or so when he was facing his personal issues and mental issues, and he just wasn't and professionally it wasn't sort of going well for him as well. And I just always want him to do well because he deserves that. I mean, and so I think he's having a blast at West Ham. So just let him be there, let him enjoy his game. He deserves it. I mean, he's getting a call up to the national team as well. So, um, yeah, why not just let him continue over there?
Yeah. So United Resurgent, any thoughts on Lingard by swap?
Yeah, so I think it's a fantastic deal for United. I think Jesse Lingard, his time is over here. And I think that Declan Rice is one of the best promising defensive midfielders that we could possibly go for. He could slot into this side for a decade, and somewhat controversially, I would say that once Harry Maguire retires, if he's been here for a couple of years, he could potentially be a future United captain. He's already captaining West Ham at a very young age, and his leadership skills are fantastic. And I've wanted him for years. I was actually looking back at a conversation I was having with Apollo in June 2019, and we were talking about our ideal United midfield rebuild for Ollie. And what I said was I wanted it to be Rice, Tielemans, and Madison. And now that I look back at that, I think that take has aged very well. Obviously, Bruno is better than Madison, and I'm very happy we signed him. But the other two slots, if we filled them with Rice and Tielemans, I don't think anybody would be complaining. I think it's a good deal. And just touching on what Josh mentioned, the idea of swapping him for Sancho is something that I think is not off the table entirely. I think he'd be fantastic in the Bundesliga because he'd get the similar amount of space that he gets in the Premier League. As we know, a lot of the teams in the Bundesliga play with a high press, so there'd be a lot of space in behind, and I think he'd do well there. The only issue is we have no indication that they want him. And the other thing is that Gareth Southgate advised him when he was going on loan to stay in the Premier League. So I don't know if that advice applies when it comes to a Champions League / Europa League level club like Dortmund. But at least so far, he told him not to leave England, and Jesse listened, and he likes West Ham, so I can see him staying there. One underrated point from that Athletic article this entire discussion is based off of, though. It said that Ollie wants to sell him now while his value is high, but that a lot of the executives are considering extending his contract to preserve value. And it said, in quotes, the way they did, it said protect value the way that they did with Phil Jones and Marcus Rojo. And that to me strikes me as the world's worst idea. The article says he's on £100,000 a week. If we extend his contract, you'd imagine we'd pay him more, and then we'd be stuck with him if his form regresses at all. And I think it's an abysmal idea to do that. And I think the manager wants to sell him, so we should be listening to the manager on that. And I really hope that John Murtaugh and Ed Woodward aren't about to cause another contractual mishap. It said in the article that in March, Ed Woodward asked internally if Lingard's performances were an indication that he was good enough to play for United after all. And I think what we've seen with Chris Smalling is a good example of this. He was one of the best center backs in Serie A last season. Some fans were saying, oh, Chris Smalling should come back and partner Harry Maguire. And here we are now 6 months later, and Chris Smalling has had an injury-plagued season. His form has been up and down when he's played. And nobody would argue now that selling Chris Smalling was a bad decision. And I think with Lingard, similarly, he scored like 6 goals in the matches he's played for West Ham, but he's had an XG of like 1.5. So this is unsustainable form from Lingard, and the club would be wise to note that and move him on. I'm hoping that the idea of floating a contract extension is just to get more money out of West Ham. But if the club is actually considering it, it would be a horrible, horrible mistake. It is time to move Jesse on. And obviously, if we can get Rice in return, then that'd be fantastic.
That's a great point about the XG because some of the shots that and the runs he's been doing, I don't think he'd do at United because he was so low on confidence and he was thinking, oh, if I mess this up, the fans are going to be on my back and I'm going to get taken off and dropped. So that could well be in his mind. So, but there's a market out there for West Ham to replace Rice too. You've got Zambo and Guisa from Fulham. You've got even Basuma from Brighton. So
don't sleep on Soumare from Lille. He's a fantastic defensive midfielder. Leicester are supposedly interested. I wouldn't mind if we went for him. So I think if they could get him for 30-40 million, they could probably make a good profit on Rice.
Yeah. So Soumare is he's been touted about. I saw Leicester had strong links. I can see Chelsea probably looking for a midfield upgrade too with Jorginho and Kovacic, however you say his name, Kovacic. Yeah, there we go. So there's going to be I think a midfield merry-go-round in Europe this summer. So it'd be interesting to see how long it takes United to try and wrap up a few deals. But yeah.
Sorry, before anyone else goes, I just want to go ahead and correct the stat that I put out earlier. I saw that in a tweet, but I'm looking at it right now. Jesse Lingard has an XG of 3.44, and he scored 6 goals from it. And he has an XA of 1.64, and he has 3 assists from it. So while he is doubling his expected stats, and you would expect him to regress somewhat, it's not as drastic as I'd said earlier.
He had a penalty, to be fair. So that could have been non-penalty XG, so...
I don't know if you boys remember when Lingard was here, and I think he played, I can't remember what game it was, but he was not playing well and he was losing the ball so much. And there was a really, it was going around Twitter for weeks, you know, when Ollie said, you know, Jesse, one more time and you're fucking off, sort of thing. And Josh mentioned him being low on confidence, and actually it's reminded me of that. And I don't think we actually saw him very much after that. And as far as him leaving, sometimes I think players just very much need to leave Manchester United. I think it's the exact same at Real Madrid. All these, you know, the top clubs, the elite clubs with massive fan bases. Sometimes the shirt can weigh very, very heavy. You know, I mean, and obviously I know he's come from the academy and a lot of us do support him. Over the years, he's had his personal issues. His form's been very up and down. And although we've had some fantastic memories with him, and we'll always support him wherever he goes, over the time has gone on, you know, the Manchester United badge and the shirt is just weighed very heavily on him, and obviously our own fan base hasn't helped that very much at all. And you know, as a Manchester United fan, I think it's really nice to see him doing so well at West Ham, and it seems he's back to himself again. You know, that's nice to see, and I hope he continues that way. But it's definitely time to move on. As you said, he'd be a third choice number 10. It'd be exactly the same as it was before. And he just sort of seems to have found this sort of new lease of life, having moved to West Ham at the moment, and it's really nice to see. So I think, you know, to bring it back and extend the contract would just be ridiculous. You know, I think there's an understanding between West Ham and Manchester United now, as his performances have been better and better, that, you know, they're going to want him in the summer. Like I think that's understood between the two clubs. So I think he was always going to go in the summer, and obviously now, obviously we saw the news come out that the ideas floating around of a Rice Lingard swap deal. The sort of West Ham fan base has gone into meltdown. You know,
they've gone down. They've gone really.
You know,
like if you discuss with them, they're gonna evaluate Lingard to 10 million. I'm like, get out of here. 10 million.
No,
you're gonna get his foot for 10 million. Jesus.
It's like they've even started like targeting the official Manchester United accounts tweets, and it's like they're in sort of total denial about the whole thing. But my sort of take on that is that, I mean, this is just how football works. I mean, players move to bigger clubs from smaller clubs. I mean, it's happened to us. Like Cristiano Ronaldo, who was the best player in the world at the time, moved to Real Madrid because he perceived them to be a bigger club and a better club, and he had better chances of winning the Champions League. This is just how football works. I don't understand why they're in denial about it. This could very, very much happen. You know, that's just my take on the whole thing anyway.
Yeah, spot on. Okay, so we've gone on for a while about, you know, Lingard, Rice, and obviously the Granada game. So now we're going to kick it off and move into the Spurs session. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the Tottenham Hotspur versus Manchester United discussion. So first of all, do you want to kick us off, United versus Surgeon? What are your thoughts on it?
Oh, first straight away to me. Okay, so for me, the biggest thing when I hear Spurs that comes back into my mind over and over is that 6-1 demolition that we had against them earlier this season. I know Oli beat Mourinho and then drew with them last season, but that 6-1 is a real sore spot for me. It's one of those things where I remember after the Everton match when Oli was just first in the job, and he said, some of these players aren't going to be here, and I'm going to be successful at this club. And he basically said that this wouldn't happen again. We lost 4-0 for those who don't remember to Everton. And then that 6-1 was basically that happening again. And arguably worse because it was our ex-manager inflicting it on us. So to me, the Spurs match is our opportunity for revenge. I've said previously that the league matches don't particularly matter anymore. We're pretty much set for top 4. As long as we get a couple of wins, we'll be all right. But I desperately hope this is one of those wins. Spurs are relatively low on confidence. Heung-min Son is just coming back from an injury, but they've had all week to prepare for us because they were out of the Europa League. Whereas we had a midweek fixture to worry about, and it was draining for some of our players. So I'm not super optimistic for this one, but it's the match between now and the end of the season alongside Liverpool that I most desperately hope that we can win. And I think the key to us winning is going to be to score goals. We can't go out there and try to nick a 1-0. They've got too much quality in Harry Kane and Heung-min Son, potentially Gareth Bale coming off the bench, Carlos Vinicius, in Tanguy and Ndombele. There's so many good players there that if we try to sit back and counterattack them, I don't think it'll work. Whereas their defense is absolutely awful. Davinson Sanchez came from Ajax, but he's one of the worst ball-playing defenders that I've ever seen. So for me, we have to go and try and attack that back line and go and score goals and try to win the game that way. Any kind of defensive posture, I think, would backfire. But the one thing that does play in our favor is that they're managed by Jose Mourinho. So we know that 8 of their players are not allowed to leave their own half until they're in a secure position in the match. So I look forward to seeing Heung-min Son as a left wing back, and that'll help us. But by and large, I'm really hoping we go at them.
Yeah, I saw a quote from Jose Mourinho earlier saying, when he was talking about what's something to do with United get too many penalties or something like that, you always expect that. But also that 6-1 defeat could also sort of help motivate the United players. And that if he was in Ole Solskjaer's shoes, he'd sort of been he'd sort of try to use that to their advantage.
I mean, he's not wrong that United. I mean, he could say that United get too many penalties. I mean, we do get relatively high number of penalties, but it's proportionate to the number of touches in the opponent's box and the number of dribbles that we do in the pace of our players. What I would say for Jose Mourinho is if we get too many penalties, he gets too many Premier League jobs. What other manager could have Chelsea nearly relegated for half the season and then come to United, have us finish in a Europa League spot one season, miss out on the title the second year, be in a Europa League position again the third season, and then get another job at a big club? He's getting more chances. He has more lives than a cat. It's ridiculous.
It's a good analogy. Josh, what do you think about the game?
Interesting quote from Mourinho there, saying if he was in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's shoes, well, he was, and he ruined what the club were trying to build. He turned people against each other. He's turned the fans against each other. We are still trying to get out of this Jose Mourinho toxic era, and we won't get out of it until we win a trophy and see Harry Maguire and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer with happy faces and something that we can actually, use. He is one of the most toxic managers I've ever seen. In terms of the game, they've had a week now to stew over this Newcastle draw where they played terrible. Obviously Ornstein has come out saying that there's a few Spurs players who are against him, and I think it was like 60% of the dressing room or 80% of the dressing room. Alderweireld is a big one. He might not make it. I think Mourinho said that he didn't even make COVID testing. Aurier might be out. Doherty might be out. Davis is definitely out. So a few injuries in the defence, which is good for us. But in terms of, I just really want to beat Jose Mourinho. I really need that in my life. I need that. I need to take it into the next week. That will get me through the next week. And we're a much better team than Spurs. After that 6-1 defeat, I was so worried. I was so worried, but Ollie was calm, and we've come out fighting since then. And Spurs have gone like that since then. So, that I think that represents both managers. Ollie's about the long term, Jose's about the short term. So yeah, he won that day, but we're second in the league. Hopefully, win a trophy, and I really hope we win on Sunday. Like Resurgent said, don't sit back. I think we should go for it. Of course, don't leave yourself vulnerable on the counter attack. Let's hope we have enough players fit. A few players have to prove a point. Pogba will want to prove a point, and the defence will want to prove a point. Don't want to concede 6 goals again. Shaw was really bad that day. I remember that tackle he did, and Ollie just went like this with his hands. So hopefully he has a good game. He's got a lot to prove against Mourinho. This is a game where we have a lot to prove, and hopefully we do it.
Sorry, I know we're a United podcast, but I have a quick question. We can just say yes or no, or do a show of hands or something. If you were Daniel Levy, would you sack Jose Mourinho this summer if he doesn't make top 4?
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
Because I've seen some debate among Spurs fans back and forth that, what can you expect with the squad that he has? He shouldn't necessarily be making top 4. And I've seen others say that's basically all the complaints that we had before. So I was just interested to see if you thought Spurs should be happy with their station in life under Mourinho. But
Spurs fans, when they were towards the top of the league, were doing lineup 11 sheets of the depth that they've got. So why have they suddenly changed, saying, "Look at our squad, it's shocking, and all this, and the recruitment's poor"? They flip-flop more than Jose Mourinho does. And the Spurs fans that I know want him gone. They want him gone. They've got a few good loanees out like Oliver Skip. They want Nagelsmann. They want a much more progressive manager. He sucks the life out of you. He's horrible.
He's a draining presence in the Premier League as well, even as an opposition fan. He's like a dementor, basically. It just sucks your soul until there's nothing left. And I'm just hopeful that after this, we won't ever see him again in the Premier League.
Because this Spurs fan base is going through exactly what the Manchester United fan base for. And when he eventually goes, they're going to have Mourinho Easters, as he called them the other day. It's exactly the same as we've got Mourinho Easters because of the things that he done 10 years ago. The guy's finished, man. He's fucking finished. I was so unhappy when he managed Manchester United. Even when he was winning trophies, even when he won the Europa League, it was fantastic. We won a trophy, but the state of the club was, it still wasn't great. Still coming out every week. He was falling out with Pogba in training. It was awful, throwing Luke Shaw under the bus. I mean, I know we mentioned Jose Mourinho a lot, but I just think that's sort of indicative to what he did to us as a fan base, and we're still trying to get out of the toxic era, just like Josh said. I mean, he alone has probably divided this fan base more than anything that I can remember in recent times.
When I was a teenager, I used to be a Mourinhoista, and I matured beyond that. I'll just say this. When he got the job in 2016, that particular day, I remember writing somewhere on an internet forum or something that basically that Jose Mourinho getting the job was the death of the soul of Manchester United, that we had given up everything that we stood for as a club and succumbed all to the dark side. And I'm just so glad.
And the way we did it. Too.
Oh my God, Van Gaal was so mistreated at the end in terms of the way he lost his job. I'm not saying he should have kept it necessarily, but the way that he was sacked was brutal.
I mean, when Mourinho first went to Tottenham, I was actually quite I was like, yeah, it sort of suits them because they've gone so long without a trophy, over 10 years. And you think Mourinho, yeah, he might not be what he was, but he does get you trophies. And even at Man United, he got a couple. So, I mean, they're still in a Carabao Cup final. They haven't been close to winning a trophy in a while. I mean, I know they're in the Champions League final. But apart from that, there hasn't been much. And I still think he could win that trophy. And then you've got to say, well, he's won Spurs a trophy. You've got to keep him, even if he doesn't get top 4. At least that's my opinion. But I still think that, and again, this isn't a Spurs podcast, but I still think he's going to end with him getting sacked the year after anyway, probably. But yeah, moving on.
Sorry,
United
just before
Apollo,
we go, I want to
what are
throw
your
out a
sort of
quick
thoughts?
quote from Mourinho on where that Spurs team is. He said at his unveiling, we cannot win the Premier League this season, but we can win it next season. Not will, but can. And that they're nowhere close, obviously. They're not even in the top 4. So it's damning that he's not been able to achieve the goals that he set out for himself. As I said at the time, it's great to see him backtrack and say everyone is shit in a year. And that's exactly where they find themselves. And hopefully we can take advantage.
And then another thing that really sort of accentuates the point that we're making about his toxicity was it just last week someone asked him sort of what's going on with the results, that I think a journalist put to him about him being one of the best managers for scraping 1-0 wins, and he come out and said same coach, different players. Like imagine being a player. Like, imagine being a player in that squad and your manager says these things about you. You're not going to want to play for him.
The best
so that's what really didn't surprise me that they want him gone.
Someone posted a picture of Luke Shaw on Twitter and it says same player, different coach.
Yeah, I love that. Love that.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I think that quote sort of sums up how he's changed. He sort of, remember Lampard was saying, or was it John Terry or both saying he made him feel like $1 million. And that they absolutely love Jose Mourinho, but nowadays it's just not the same. But yeah, we're going to go with United Apollo. So, what are your sort of thoughts on it and thoughts on the match?
Like the others have said, really, I want revenge after the 6-1 game. We really need that. One thing I also think is worth mentioning is while those players that are going to be missing for the second leg of the Europa game, that kind of means we can play them this weekend without worrying about that. So you don't need to worry about those players playing 3 games in a week. So that kind of does help in a sense of it could make a little bit of difference fitness-wise, given they've had more preparation. So which is something worth noting. But yeah, I think we can get the result.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to talk about predictions later, but I think 2-1. I think they'll score because they've got the likes of Heung-min Son and Harry Kane, and our defense is good, but it isn't. It's not quite 100% amazing yet. But I think we still got in us to score a couple of goals, especially when they got a couple of defenders out, fullbacks. So, but yeah, Vin, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, this game's personal, honestly. Not just because it's Mourinho on the other side, but because of the 6-1 thrashing that he gave us. But I think that game was sort of an anomaly given the circumstances surrounding it. The fact that we didn't have a proper preseason, we had all our our players weren't match fit. Pogba was suffering from COVID, and there's just a multitude of issues that were really sort of affected us from top to bottom. Like there were a lot of transfer rumors. We weren't doing well in the transfer market as well, so that was again a bit of a concern. The players were sort of just not in the groove, not in the zone. And I remember Solskjaer saying after that game that it's going to take 3 to 4 games for us to get back into our own stride. And he was right. And that's what a preseason sort of not having a preseason does to you. So Tottenham, on the other hand, they had a lot more time than us to prepare for the game. They weren't in the Europa League semi-finals, so they weren't playing European football at all. We got a bit of time to sort of prepare for the season, and that's the reason why you had Son and Kane and Moura and Lamela scoring all these goals. So an entirely different situation compared to then. We're second in the league. We're much more confident now. Our players are in really good form. Maguire is much more solid and much more resolute than he was in that game. Luke Shaw is in the form of his life. Spurs, on the other hand, I think Son has been out of form since he's come back from injury. I think Harry Kane is like the only legit threat that you would have to worry about. I know there's a lot of talented players, but they're all out of form, really. So Harry Kane's the only one who's been scoring consistently. in each and every game for them. So he's one definitely to watch out for. And like Apollo said, you can play the likes of Maguire, Shaw, and McTominay for this one because they're not going to be playing next week against Granada. So they're going to get an entire week's of rest before the next league game in the weekend. So yeah, so play with the strongest side, and ideally I would like 6-1, but I know that's not going to happen. But yeah, just get the result, keep a clean sheet. Really.
Yeah. Anyone else? Are we going to move on to start 11s unless anyone else has anything sort of in general to say about the game?
Well, I mean, let's not mince words. I think everyone in this fan base can agree that we want to fucking batter them. You know, it's
Yeah.
incredibly personal. It's the 6-1, the start of the season. It's Jose himself. It's what he did to our club and what he's still doing to our club now as a fan base. You know, it is personal, and I want to fucking batter them. I do. I hate him. I really hate him.
It would ruin my week if we lost that game and we saw Harry Kane and Jose celebrating and a snarky remark in the press conference. It would hurt me.
Imagine Spurs doing the double over us. Nah, mate. Nah. Defo not. No. I'm gonna
We
be
just know
depressed for like the week.
That's gonna
They're
get
gonna
clipped
sit.
if we lose.
We just know how deep they're going to sit, and they're going to rely on Son and Kane. And I mean, it's definitely possible that they actually do nick a 1-0 win, and I'm a bit scared about it, to be honest. But
Oh yeah. Kane's gonna become a defensive midfielder. Son's gonna become a left or right wing back. Who's one of the
Don't forget
defenders?
your wingback.
Aurier is gonna be a goalkeeper. Aurier is gonna be like a complementary goalkeeper to Laurie. It's all gonna happen. Trust me. Sit back counter. That's what's gonna happen. So we know Jose Mourinho pretty well. And yes, they have like an entire week to prepare for the game. We've just got like a quick 2-day turnaround. But I feel that the adrenaline rush of getting revenge against Spurs, I think that will drive us for this game, and I think that will be good enough to get out result. I mean, it's just yes, it's a 2-day recovery, but on top of that, you've got this energy, this motivation to go out there and seek revenge. I think that will sort of help us through the game. So I wouldn't be too much. I wouldn't worry too much about like recovery and preparation time really for this one. That's what I feel.
there is that. But sort of again in the same vein is you remember when we played AC Milan in the Europa League, we came back and we played Leicester at the weekend, and our players looked dead on their feet. You know, and we played awful. I mean, you would hope that this prospect of revenge sort of motivates the players and gives them that sort of extra boost. Will sort of motivate them through and give them the energy levels that they need. But it just sort of worries me how we did play against Leicester. I mean, I know Leicester are a much better footballing side, and you know, they will actually try and progress the ball fairly well, so they're a different type of team. But that does concern me a little bit. But I mean, you really do hope that you know, Jose himself and the result from early in the season give the players the boost of energy that they need.
Yeah, for sure. I concur. So we'll move on to start 11s then. I've actually planned in advance with my own start 11. Sort of go through it, you know, slowly with your ish. But first of all, United Apollo, what are your thoughts on, you know, sort of what 11 you would pick? You know, maybe don't tell us everything, but what, you know, start with the defenders, for example.
Yeah, I'll start with the easier things for me. So I personally think Henderson needs to come back in goal. I think I would stick with De Gea in the cups, Henderson in the league, and then the usual back four of Wan-Bissaka, Lindelof, Maguire, Shaw. So I guess if I leave that there, then someone else can do their midfield choices.
Yeah. Josh, what do you think?
For the midfield, I've gone McTominay, Fred, Bruno. So I've tried and tested in these kind of games. And I put Pogba on the wing, so he is playing for me. But McTominay, Fred, and Bruno.
Just before we keep going
Yeah.
here, does anyone have any disagreement with the, I guess that would be 8 players that have been named so far in the starting 11? Because I have the same 8.
Yeah, same. I went with Pogba on the wing as well, same as Josh.
I've
But-
dropped
but-
Greenwood at the moment.
I think
Okay,
I'm
yeah.
the same, Josh. We'll see.
I went with James. Wait, no, I did go with Greenwood, yeah, on the right, and Cavani up front. So, would anyone disagree with that?
I like the idea of Greenwood, actually, because I don't think James is going to have an awful lot of defending to do in this game if going by Tottenham's previous performances. I know Greenwood wasn't great last night against Granada, but I do think he's a bigger goal threat than James is.
I'm a little bit scarred by the 6-1, and I'm a little bit
Yeah.
cautious. So what I've done is I've gone with James on the right, Pogba on the left, and Rashford up front. And I've benched Cavani and Greenwood. I've gone ahead and gone with the kind of the almost similar to the team that we beat Spurs with when Ollie first came in. Not quite the split strikers, but the one after where we beat. I think when Jose first came in, where he played Rashford up front, and that's what I'm going with again. Counterattacking them at pace whenever possible, and also looking to break them down. But the biggest thing for me is James has to play on the right to cover Youngman's Son, because he's going to play off the left probably. And if he's playing on the right, then him and Pogba can switch. But basically, James's job is to do what Eden Hazard had done to him by Ander Herrera under Mourinho. For me, just stick to Youngman's Son and make his life a living hell.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. So yeah, I just realised I didn't include Rashford in my 11 because I was going to put Pogba on the left, but I mean, I still want to put Pogba on the left, but it's better on the left, if you know what I mean. So, but yeah, I think he'll probably play on the right.
I suppose if Rashford's up front, then he's doing less running, isn't he? You know, I mean, I could go with James to track Reguilon and Son and Rashford in the middle and then Pogba on the left. Because of the lack of Maguire, McTominay and Shaw in midweek, Cavani might be needed for his set pieces, defending set pieces, headering against Granada. So, yeah, maybe I'd go with James, Rashford and Pogba as my front three.
One thing's worth remembering as well, that there are more recent examples of Rashford playing up front. Like while he plays left wing most of the time, he has had a couple of games this season where he's played up front. So it's not exactly unfamiliar for him.
Yeah, I think he suits it as well when, especially when we're playing like a big 6 team. They are actually in the top 6 now, which hasn't been a regular occurrence throughout the season. But I mean, then again, with Jose Mourinho, is he going to play, a little bit lower down the pitch? But yeah, I think Rashford can suit that, especially when there is space for him. It's just, is he great at holding ball up? Probably not. Yeah, I'd say
he sort of found
Rashford,
himself in a centre forward position last night when he scored the goal, when he made the run from out to win. I thought that was brilliant. I know he started like further out on the left, but the run was very indicative of a number 9 run from out to win, and he sort of done the defender, took it down and slid it home. So, he's got a striker's instinct about him, but he's predominantly best as a winger. But he could very well do well in this game.
The thing is, Cavani's out of form, and he works well in confined spaces. So I guess that's the one positive of playing him. But as was mentioned, he'd probably be needed for the Europa League, given a lot of our taller players are out. So I think it works well kind of in the long term. And also it works well just for this match as well, because like I said, I think you need James to track their runners off the left on their left side, on our right, and then we can have Pogba on the left. So that kind of leaves one spot. The problem is if you play Rashford on the left, then Pogba gets displaced, and now you're either having Pogba on the right wing, where he's not gonna track back. Let's be honest. So he's not going to provide the defensive cover, or you have to play him in midfield instead of McFred, which again compromises the defensive structure. So I think there's not really anywhere to put Paul Pogba other than left wing if you want to defend properly. And if you put Paul Pogba at left wing, you have to play Marcus Rashford up front.
How does Rashford on the left, Greenwood up top, and Pogba on the right side?
Who's going to track Reguilon and Youngman's Son? Aaron Wan-Bissaka is great one-on-one, but he's not going to defend 2 players at the same time.
I don't like Pogba on the right because I prefer him on the left because he can cut in and he's right-footed. On the right, if he cuts in, he's left-footed. What's he going to do? He's just going to be playing cross-field balls with his right all game. It's not really going to be making.
And if Bale starts, he'll start on the right, which Pogba, it's easier for him to track Bale because Bale's not as explosive as Son or Reguilon, for example. So I think that's the perfect. I think James, Rashford, Pogba is a good front three. I'm just thinking though, if Spurs play Rodon and Dyer or Sanchez, that's like party town for Cavani, surely. I don't know, but again, we need him on Thursday, so it's difficult.
Back three and drafted in Japhet Tanganga, who's a fantastic young player. I don't know why he doesn't do more for them. I
think you do know why.
Oh yeah, we do know, but realistically, he should.
Yeah.
If he does play those two players, I think it'd be excellent for Cavani. But then again, you could sort of react to that and play your quickest forwards. You could even play a front two of Greenwood and Rashford, using their sort of pace and behind against that. I fancy them against those two centre halves specifically.
Yeah, definitely. I think if Cavani does start, you could potentially have them on toast, as you're saying. But yeah, does anyone else sort of have anything to say in relation to lineup or anything really?
We need to win that midfield battle.
That's
which is why McFred is important. Normally, I'd go with McTominay and Pogba, but in this one, I think McFred has to be there. They have to start their energy, their dynamism to like press all the time. Fred running around, yeah, you need that. You need that over there, and you control the midfield. You're gonna make sure you don't give balls to Kane, Son, Bale, Mora, whoever's on the right. So I think their outlet is the midfield. You control that. That's pretty much done. Because I don't think Reguilon and who's their right back? Doherty, I think. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but he's injured.
Oh wow.
So he could play Tanganga there.
Oh yeah, I watched Tanganga like a couple of games. He's a decent. He's like a young decent lad. So I mean, I don't know. Let's see. But yeah, definitely the midfield that has to be. That's important, which is why we're inside Pogba there. Yeah. So
has anybody watched The Last Dance?
Sorry, I was going to say I don't really have any I don't have any starting lineup changes or advice for Ollie. But the one thing I would say is I have a suggestion for what the pre-match team talk should be for Fred specifically. Just do what he wants to do for the whole team, and then come up to Fred. Just come up. I'm grabbing the monitor. Just say, "Okay, Fred, listen to me. You are not going to pass the ball backwards. You are not going to pass the ball backwards to the goalkeeper. Don't attempt it. We know what happens. Please do not try and play the ball back to the goalkeeper." Because we've seen Fred play hospital passes in big games over the years. Usually it happens once every 3 or 4 months, but it concerns me that it could happen again after Leicester. And so for me, just please, whatever you do, Ollie, during midweek, during training, pre-match, whatever, please make it clear to Fred, if he receives the ball and is under a little bit of pressure, kick it out for a corner, kick it out for a throw-in, just kick it forward and let them start a new possession from their own half. But don't try and play it back to the goalkeeper, because I'm sure Jose Mourinho is going to tell Heung-min Son and Harry Kane, if Fred plays the ball back, I want you to run on immediately, because we don't know if that ball is going to be all the way to Henderson or halfway into the box. And if it is, it would be the perfect assist for one of them to score off of. So McFred is a great midfield, but we need to make sure that Fred understands he should do anything else beyond pass the ball back to the goalkeeper in our own box.
I think on McFred as well, given how deep Kane dropped as well, I think it's really important to have that mobility there, because they could easily create overloads in the midfield if Kane's going to drop that far backwards, and you've sort of just got McFred in there. So I think having the mobility of Fred and McTominay is really important at the weekend.
Yeah,
you know what? Okay, this is an unpopular sort of opinion, but I just have a feeling Pogba doesn't start and he comes on at halftime. I just have this feeling. I don't know why. Because you want to fit James on the right, Rashford on the left, and I feel Ole wants to go Greenwood up top and Bruno at number 10. And then with McFred midfield, I have a feeling Ole doesn't fit Pogba in, and then he sort of puts him on at halftime. Because if you remember the 1-1 draw at Tottenham last season, Pogba came on, I think, around the 55th or 60th minute, and he
Oh yeah,
changed
won
the
a
game.
penalty, didn't he? Won a penalty.
He won a penalty, and then before that, he put a long ball to Rashford
Yeah.
from the halfway line, and Rashford almost had a chance to score a goal. So he changed the game from midfield.
But I think that's exactly why he starts, because it's such a good pitch for him. And
Again, I want him to start, but I just have this nagging feeling that he might not. I don't know.
I think that was his first game back from a long injury, wasn't it? When he won that penalty.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I think discussion is pretty much is okay. Done. So in terms of predictions, I gave mine earlier 2-1. Dan, what is your score prediction?
5-0. I want to fucking smash them.
I like it.
Please come to me next.
Mate, they're gonna score. Please say 5-1, please.
5.5. Nah, 5. Go on, 5-1. Yeah, I'll go that.
Okay.
United versus
0-0.
That's worse. Shut up.
No,
That's worse.
0-0 is the safest, most accurate prediction. Plus, I just really wanted to say it after Dan said 5-1, but I do think honestly it'll be 0-0. I'm leaving Luke Shaw in my fantasy team because I think we're going to keep a clean sheet, and I think both teams are going to just be out there happy with a point.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance of that, actually, considering how many 0-0s we've had against the top 6 sort of opposition. I forgot about that. Josh, what's your prediction?
I'm inclined to side with Resurgent, but I'm going to go
6-1.
I'm going to go with one. I'm going to go with 1-0 Manchester United.
Okay. Vin, I don't think we're going you.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go mad here and say 6-1 final and stuff. I'm gonna say 2-1. I feel Kane's gonna score. Fernandes and Rashford scorers for me. It's gonna be nervy. Yeah, I think it's gonna be like Rashford gets an early goal, Kane equalizes, and then Fernandes gets like a penalty or he does like a worldie from the edge of the box.
Fair enough. And finally, United Apollo.
I'm going 2-1 United win.
Okay, same as me. Brilliant. So yeah, I think we'll end it there then. Thanks everyone who made it this far. If anyone did, probably someone. But yeah, like, subscribe,
Mr. Santos.
Yeah, he always watches
Mr. Santos.
Hi, Mr. Santos. Yeah, as I say, like, subscribe, comment, it really helps out, and we'll see you soon.